In this How It Was episode, we will tell you which Tsar taught Russia to drink, how an alcoholic British king became a drug addict, and whether it's true that a US president's boozing eventually led to the Civil War. Let's go! Top 7 alcoholics in power. Drinking is one of the most ancient human devices. Throughout history there have been boozers among high-ranking officials and even royalty. Some of the most reckless drunks in power include 3 Brits, 2 Russians, an American, and, surprisingly, a Turkish Muslim. Let's start with him. Selim II. Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, Selim II was the son of Hürrem Sultan and Suleiman the Magnificent. He was nicknamed Selim the Drunk, and with good reason. After his father died in 1566, Selim had no problem getting the throne for himself. He got lucky. His father had chosen his successor in advance. While Sultan's sons would normally scheme and plot against each other, nobody dared to thwart the will of old Suleiman. Too bad. Selim enjoyed his time with a bottle far more than he enjoyed ruling the country. Legend has it he would ask his Grand Vizier, "No matter what, don't let me sober up." Selim especially loved sweet wines from Cyprus, which may explain why he ordered to take over the island in 1571. Eventually the Sultan died, as any random drunk. He hit his head on a step getting out of a swimming pool while drunk. Peter the Great. The last Muscovian Tsar and the first Emperor of Russia, Peter the Great caught up the habit of drinking strong alcohol from his foreign friends. His advisors and entourage were used to drinking weak mead, and strong alcohol got them hammered instantaneously. Peter quite enjoyed watching wasted ministers arguing with each other. The monarch came up with his decrees right there at booze-ups, about 20,000 during his reign. That makes it nearly 1 decree every day. For 20 years during Peter's reign, the alcohol industry was a major government monopoly and a considerable source of budget revenue. Because of that, drinking was encouraged by the ruling class. Builders, workers, sailors and soldiers in St. Petersburg would get a free shot of vodka every day. As it often happens to drunks, Peter's health deteriorated. He suffered from kidney stones. To get better, the emperor drank mineral water, but it wasn't helping anymore. At the age of 52, Peter died from an inflamed bladder. We are yet to get to Churchill, but there were yet more reckless winos among British prime ministers. William Pitt the Younger. He was the youngest prime minister in the history of Great Britain. When he was first appointed in 1783, he was just 24. Well-read, arrogant, and secretive, he never married, nor did he have any known lovers, women or men. Pitt was probably asexual, but there was a different passion in which he indulged. At the age of 14, William was diagnosed with genetic gout, and the family doctor prescribed him to drink a bottle of port wine every day. Pitt the Younger followed this recommendation his whole life, regularly increasing the amount. Rumour has it that one particular year he drank 574 bottles of red French wine, 854 bottles of Madeira, and 2,500 bottles of port. During his second premiership, the country was at war against Napoleon. The Prime Minister would engage in drinking to alleviate the tension, which earned him a nickname, Three Bottle Man, among journalists. Sometimes he would get nauseated halfway through a speech in Parliament. Despite the drinking problem, Pitt successfully handled political and economic crises, fought against corruption, and did not engage in bribery himself. Britain still remembers him as one of the most successful prime ministers. Premiership and drinking took a toll on Pitt himself though. He died in 1805, as young as 46. As a teenager, future King George IV started drinking and frequenting brothels and court ladies' quarters. His father, George III, was desperately fighting the Parliament to expand his powers, and the behaviour of the heir apparent was playing right into the hands of his opponents. The young reveller then moved to his own establishment, far away from his own parents. George was forced to marry his cousin, Princess Caroline of Brunswick. Caroline was not especially pretty, and the prince spent the wedding night sitting next to a fireplace in drunken stupor. In 1811 he became Prince Regent, due to his father falling dangerously ill. His reign turned into a rapid succession of drinking feasts. George's favourite breakfast consisted of 2 pigeons, 3 beefsteaks, 3 parts of a bottle of white wine, a glass of dry champagne, 2 glasses of port, and a glass of brandy. Before public events, he would take 100 drops of opium essence. In 1820, following the death of his father, the 58-year-old prince became king. His health was irrevocably damaged at that point, and he spent the last years of his life constantly drugged. In 1830, his younger brother William replaced him on the throne. Now we are getting to everyone's favourite, Winston Churchill. In his recollections, Churchill wrote he'd started drinking when he was young and lived in overseas colonies of the British Empire. Clean water was rather scarce, so he had to disinfect his body with alcohol. Going to war against the Boers, Churchill brought 36 bottles of wine, 18 bottles of Scotch whisky, and 6 bottles of brandy. In addition, the future minister served in the cavalry, where champagne was a regular staple of any event, however small. After returning from the war, Winston started drinking even more. He would normally drink at least a bottle of brandy or cognac in a day. In the 50s, at the end of his second term of office as the Prime Minister, Churchill could not speak clearly anymore. It could be put down to his age just as well as to alcohol. Even so, he lived a long and eventful life. Moving on to the New World, Franklin Pierce. The best-known drunk of all American presidents was Franklin Pierce. Having won by a huge margin in the 1852 presidential race, it didn't take him long at all to lose all his popularity. He quarreled with Great Britain, blew the annexation of Cuba, and played into slave owners' hands. Historians almost unanimously consider Franklin one of the worst US presidents, whose disastrous tenure eventually led to civil war. Pierce started his workday with a glass of strong liquor, and finished it the same way. In 1857, at the end of his first term, the Democratic Party stated they would not nominate him for a second term. "There's nothing left but to get drunk," he said, and moved to a New Hampshire farm, where he would die from liver cirrhosis in 1869. In his last years, he almost quit drinking, but it was too late for him to get better. If you haven't guessed it already, the second Russian on our list is Boris Yeltsin, a true party king. The drunken incidents of the first president of the Russian Federation are well remembered to this day. Completely wasted, Yeltsin would disrupt important official meetings, stunning international media. In 1994, at a concert dedicated to the Russian army pulling out of eastern Germany, Boris grabbed the conductor's baton and decided to assist with conducting the orchestra. In 1995, he was found roaming half-naked near Blair House, where he was staying, meters from the White House, hailing a taxi to go find some pizza. Bill Clinton was definitely embarrassed. On the other hand, the US president was no stranger to this behavior of his colleague. Rumour has it, Boris was drunk even during the president's first phone call back in 1993. The patience of his high-ranking colleagues was put to a true test in 1997. At a formal conference in Stockholm, the Russian president went into a rant about how Swedish meatballs reminded him of tennis star Bjorn Borg's face, and then almost fell off the stage. Yeltsin lived quite a long life for an alcoholic, and died at the age of 76. His political life proved shorter, since by 1999 he was already unable to perform the presidential duties anymore. This led to Vladimir Putin's rise to power. In the next How It Was episode, we will tell you about beautiful and dangerous women warriors of the ancient world. Amazons. Who were they? How did they dress? What kind of weapons did they have? And did they exist at all? Subscribe to our channel and be the first to watch our new videos.